Welcome to the chaos sector. We enter the political matrix. Recently, Old Joe signed an executive order to protect illegal immigrants, or as the left would say, undocumented persons. I guess that's fair to some degree, but there is a huge problem with generalizing all of them as undocumented as well. But anywho, the executive order offers protections to undocumented spouses and children of U.S. citizens. At a White House event marking the 12th anniversary of DACA, the Obama-era action that protects young undocumented immigrants, Biden laid out his plans. It comes after the president implemented a crackdown on migrants seeking asylum at the border. Now, this is obviously a tactic to gain more support from the Latin community, and even the Black community coincidentally, but I don't think it will work. Biden's executive orders have been centered around illegal immigration. That makes up the bulk of the focus. There was nothing that benefited the American citizen. And that's not hyperbole, as he would say. For example, executive orders in regards to equity were to convince the Black community he was fighting for them, right? Okay, let's give a brief list of executive orders in regards to equity. Keep in mind, his pen was busy the first few weeks in office. On January 20th of 2021, the first executive order in regards to equity was listed as such.
Rescinds the Trump administration's 1776 commission, directs agencies to review their actions to ensure racial equity. Now there were 10 in total in regards to equity, but not all were executive orders as some were memos, and only one, I repeat, only one was directly focused on race, and that was to, quote, ensure racial equity. Others were based on gender, sexual orientation, transgenders in the military, etc. Now here's the problem. Well, it's equity in this context. Recognizing that each person has different circumstances and allocates the exact resources and opportunities needed to reach an equal outcome. This needs to be unpacked immediately. Recognizing that each person has different circumstances and allocates resources and opportunities needed to reach an equal outcome. This is flat-out intellectual word scramble games. Equality of outcome looks to ensure people who are disadvantaged are making gains. Equality of opportunity looks to ensure that everyone has the same opportunities to make those gains. Every citizen has equality of opportunity, despite circumstances. There is not a single person in America who doesn't have equality of opportunity, regardless of race, religion, age, economic status, appearance, or gender. Anyone can go to college, anyone can obtain a career, heck, anyone can become a millionaire. The opportunities are the very reason many leave their native countries to go to America. That's the essence of freedom, the ability to accomplish goals, achieve success, and this is due to, you guessed it, opportunity. Equity, on the other hand, is literally creating equality of outcome, despite circumstance. In other words, a group of students from Japan are denied admission to Harvard, and someone else is admitted into the university for, quote, diversity policies. Diversity does not always translate to abilities, skill sets, or intelligence. Sure, it's nice to have diversity, but in certain areas of focus such as education or in the workforce, you have to accept the fact that it's, ironically, very diverse. Everyone is not the same. Prestigious universities want the best of the best, and employers want the best candidates for the job. Here's another example. An individual applying for a secretary position types 110 words per minute, while another applicant types about 50 words per minute. Now, this isn't the only determining factor, but with such a big difference in typing speed, the first applicant is more than likely to land that secretary job. Meaning, the equality of outcome forces everyone to have the same outcome regardless of discrepancies. And if you follow, this leads to undeserved success in some cases, because someone is given the same outcome without working as hard or doesn't have the same skill set as someone who does in fact have those qualities. This is a dangerous game to play because it will lead to unethical practices and philosophy regarding accomplishments. Terms like inclusion, this is what the social justice warriors and their political handlers have created. Inclusion in education, for example, refers to all students are given equal access to equal opportunities of education and learning. Let me say that one more time. Given equal access to equal opportunities. So somewhere in the United States, there are individuals who don't even have the equal access to even get the equal opportunity to education and learning. Where would this be? Because that sounds more like a third world country under dictators, right? This is not happening anywhere in the United States. Well, if it is happening, we know who to blame for it. If we look at K through 12 education, this falls on the city and states and what they do with their budgets. So if schools are run down, need to be repaired, with a lack of specific academic books, students need to obtain a specific knowledge of history or academic education. This is on the leaders of those cities. And yes, most of these problems, once again, are in cities run by Democrat mayors. It is their responsibility to provide those schools with better teachers, better academic books to teach from, and obviously better environments for the students. It's quite simple. The condition of a school reflects the condition of the community, which reflects the condition of those who are responsible for those conditions in the community. Yes, there is a domino effect, which those in power essentially push the first domino down. Lorraine Maxwell, an associate professor of design and environmental analyst in Cornell's College of Human Ecology, studied more than 230 New York City public middle schools and found a chain reaction at work. Leaking toilets, cafeterias with bad odors, broken furniture, and run-down classrooms. These conditions led to high absentees, which also contributed to low test scores and poor academic achievement. Lorraine stated, quote, "School buildings that are in good condition may signal to students that someone cares and there's a positive social climate, which in turn may encourage better attendance. Students cannot learn if they do not come to school," unquote. If the schools, either it be elementaries, middle schools, high schools, or even universities, are in bad condition, it's going to have a psychological effect on students. But again, if the schools are in bad condition, then this means the mayors and even governors are not budgeting the federal funding they receive. And even if there are disagreements about how much should be given, a school should never be in horrible condition. Everything should at least have the basic necessities to function properly. Yeah, you might not have the latest in technology, such as brand new computers, brand new books, but this does not excuse horrible physical conditions at a school. Now, there is this claim that high poverty districts get less funding per student than low poverty districts. This is misleading and can be distorted as something else. State funding, which would be state government, allocates approximately 47% of school funding. The state raises revenue through income taxes, sales tax, and other sources. Local funding, which would be local government, contribute approximately 45% of school funding. This primarily comes from property taxes paid by homeowners in the area. The federal funding is additional support, not, I repeat, not the main source of funding. But there is another problem linked to local and state funding. Unemployment. Yep, that's right. If millions are unemployed, then local and state funding is lower than the median, or the average percentages of funding they provide. In this scenario, sure, federal funding should increase. Yet, unemployment should be the main focus. So once again, the so-called lack of racial equity or inclusion, or whatever social justice virtue signaling nonsense spewed out here, is the responsibility of mayors and governors. More so, mayors, in my opinion, because they have been caught in many criminal scandals, black, white, Hispanic, Asian. It doesn't matter the race. Mayors simply can't be trusted to handle money. There's a distinct difference between them and governors. See, the governor is responsible for an entire state, so they will be a bit more cautious in being a bonehead. But mayors can essentially hide within the state, committing crimes. And even more, most of the inner city schools are run by black principals. Most of the staff are multicultural. Sure, they're white teachers, but those are just teachers. The mayors are responsible for the budgets in the city. That's where the so-called lack of equal access to equal opportunity of education and learning is stemming from. So educational inclusion is the responsibility of black and brown mayors, no one else. There isn't some white man who is sitting in a chair, twiddling his fingers with a creepy smile, preventing people of color from having this equal access to equal opportunity of education. Yes, this is what it's alluding to. But this is how political advocates and politicians create entitlement programs, which creates a sense of, you guessed it, entitlement. The same with racial equity. It's all derived from communism, socialism. Heck, we might as well just call it totalitarianism. In other words, tyrannical ideals being forced upon a social structure. Now, with all this being said, this is impossible to do anyway. Now, why is this? Because no matter how much you try to implement this so-called equality of outcome, the private sector still has the final verdict. In other words, the federal government can't force a business to hire someone. If a black person is denied a job and white person is hired, yet the white person has far more experience at that job than the black person. Well, there's this thing called workforce competition. You're competing with other applicants who may have the competitive edge over you, and vice versa, a black person may get a job based on the same concept over a white applicant. Yes, think about creative fields such as graphic designers, interior designers, or computer technicians. When you graduate from college, mentors, business management instructors would often tell their students the likelihood that they will be hired in their first year of job searching is very low. And the reason for this is because they just graduated and they are competing in the workforce with other applicants who have years of experience. Companies would rather hire individuals who have the experience so they won't risk profit losses due to training, which usually means the trainee will have a much slower pace than a more experienced individual. This leads to a decrease in productivity, deadlines not met, and obviously this hurts the bottom line, revenue. It's simple. So what does racial equity really accomplish? Virtue signaling, nothing more.
Biden ran on racial injustice for the most part. Yet, in his first 100 days in office, it was about illegal immigration, obviously the pandemic, and even lifting bans on countries deemed terrorist threats or concerns by the Trump administration. And get this, he even signed an executive order to include illegal immigrants or undocumented persons or non-citizens to be included in the U.S. Census. That's right, the United States of America Census. What in the world? Now, this didn't get much attention as it should have because this is against the law. Well, what do you expect? But if non-citizens are included in the census, then this means the local, state, and federal government have included these non-citizens in citizenship relations with government, such as their ability to vote locally for mayors, their ability to vote for governors of the state. And if they have this ability, they also have the ability to vote for a president of the United States. As a result, this undermines the American citizens' vote. In a sense, this is actually treason. Think about it, a non-citizen included in a United States Census creates so many possible unlawful activity regarding politics. Treason is the breach of allegiance a citizen owes to the sovereignty within the nation he or she lives. Biden's administration breached that allegiance, that trust, that protection of sovereignty by including non-citizens in the U.S. Census. The Pledge of Allegiance to the flag is the patriotic oath that every citizen takes to protect that sovereignty by upholding the integrity of the Constitution in which the nation was founded on. All of this goes out the window when you allow non-citizens to literally impact the sovereignty of a nation, with that nation's people, political power of their vote. Can't say the same for the Mexican government, an American in Mexico, which would be an illegal immigrant in the same dynamic, wouldn't be allowed to be included in Mexico's census.
Now, of course, there is a gray area. There are individuals who are waiting to become naturalized citizens who obtained residency in the United States. They have to be physically in the country for at least 18 months before applying for citizenship. But let's be honest, a lot of illegal immigrants are not applying for citizenship, nor do they plan on doing it in the future. See, this is the gray area that the Biden administration doesn't care to weed out. I can guesstimate, out of 50,000 immigrants that enter the country, about 25,000 attempt to legally enter. Another 10,000 attempt to enter illegally, want to do the right thing, but are scared to face consequences. And the other 15,000 simply don't care, as they are the ones trafficking children and drugs into the country. We can all agree that most of the illegal immigrants are good people. The problem is the bad people use those good people to enter the country illegally. You have women who are forced to take children with them across the border. The woman doesn't necessarily expect to come to America. She got paid to literally smuggle children into the country. She accepts being deported, as back home in her country she will be compensated nicely. There are children being trafficked across the border, drugs being smuggled in with them, and due to it being so many people all at once overwhelming the border, it's simply impossible to stop the criminal activity. DACA was essentially created due to these very problems. A lot of the children that are so-called separated from their families are actually foster children because a lot of them were accompanied by complete strangers. The strangers are deported, and the children are accepted out of sympathy. It's a very tough position for America to be in, as children are innocent all of this chaos. Yet the law needs to be enforced, but the census is a very important issue. How many households of illegal immigrants do you think have at least become permanent residents? There may be a significant percentage, yet obviously there are a lot of illegal immigrants who are not waiting to apply for citizenship, nor have been granted residency. And this causes a major concern. And let's be honest, the census indicates those households have an impact in all areas of American politics and economy. Mind you, the census helps the federal government determine how much federal funding would be, or could be, granted to each city and state. And it has been revealed in the past that illegal immigrants were obtaining government assistance, yet were not permanent residents, nor waiting to apply for citizenship. Once again, sympathy is a concern, but when does sympathy overrule the law? And not to take the side of American nationalists, but we do have to factor in the men in this equation, right? Where are the fathers? If the narrative is most illegal immigrants, or even immigrants are fleeing their native countries out of fear or better opportunities, where are the fathers of those children? Did the parents get a divorce? Why are so many fathers neglecting their families?
I want to mention an incident in relation to this. 2 illegal immigrants were arrested and charged with the murder of a 12-year-old girl in Texas. Another incident happened in New York, where an illegal immigrant who was supposed to be deported years prior had raped a 13-year-old and even recorded it. And somehow, Joy Reid and her guest call the Fox News coverage of these incidents, quote, fear-mongering. Certainly there is a fear. The mongering is actually done by Joy Reid and her guest, attempting to make it seem petty or insignificant. It's definitely not, and it should be a concern for the average American citizen, especially those in border states. And it has been a concern. Border states have been complaining about this problem for the last 10 to 20 years or so. Trump put it on the big stage and was called racist for it, yet everyone knew this was happening across the country. There are plenty of black people who speak out about these issues in their communities, but the mainstream media doesn't give them the platform, of course. In politics, the Democrats simply fail to accept that this is a reality. And guess who these culprits are? Males. Those very males that are crossing the border, right along with women and children, coming from Mexico, El Salvador, Ecuador, Guatemala, Nicaragua, Honduras, etc. It's not about stereotyping. But if there is a high number of these individuals committing these type of crimes, such as sexual assault and murder, then when do you accept the fact that there is enough empirical data to show the border needs to be secured? Let me apply this to those wealthy liberals who are fighting for no borders, because it's mainly liberals advocating for no borders. What if illegal immigrants start to migrate to your neighborhoods, drugs, crime, sexual assaults, and murder, all terrorize your communities to the point your families aren't safe going to the grocery store? Your teenage daughters are not safe going to school, going to shopping malls. Oh, okay, then you'll take it serious. But since most of them reside in the lower class communities, the liberals don't care and virtue signal for their freedom and human rights. Even more so, those white liberals who virtue signal for illegal immigrants, they aren't to be taken seriously whatsoever. These would be the same people who would start to fear those illegal immigrants if they started to pop up in their wealthy neighborhoods. It's already been proven. They did an experiment with individuals who were basically advocating for no borders, claiming it's a country founded on immigration, blah blah blah. But when they were asked if they lock their doors, they all said yes. Then they were asked, is it because you want to protect yourself and family? And they said yes. Of course, the point was obvious, legal immigration and a secure border. Yet those white liberals and other races who are liberals have these types of conversations behind closed doors. Quote, why are they moving here? I don't know. They must be on some government housing program. But why would the mayor build housing in our neighborhoods? That's wrong. I'm not being racist or anything, but I don't know. It's like, we have a peaceful community. Why can't they find another place to stay, unquote. Translation, we will go out and protest for your right to be in America, but we don't want you staying in our neighborhoods. Yeah, classic hypocrisy. Also, many people need to acknowledge that in most of those Central and South American countries, teenage girls are seen as women to those men. Many of them have children around 16 years old, as they are deemed women culturally. Yes, the women crossing the border with 3 children. Well, some of them are victims of sexual assault by males in their native countries. And I would guesstimate that most of those women are not actually women. They're still teenagers, ranging from 16 to 19 years old. 19 is still a teenager, by the way. So imagine males coming from those countries entering the United States with that cultural perception about teenage girls. Yes, you will have an uptick in sexual assaults of minors due to the culture. Once again, sexual assault does happen in North American culture, but culturally speaking, men do not see teenage girls as women ready to bear children, such as men from those countries in Central and South America. It's just the facts. So keep in mind that old Joe's executive orders to bring in more immigrants from Central and South America increases the chances of more cultural behavior that is opposed to the average cultural behaviors of a North American society. Just thought I'd point that out.
So much effort and compassion for non-citizens, yet nothing for the black community, which helped you get elected into office? Speaking of that, get a load of this proclamation in Biden's first 100 days. Reinstates travel restrictions based on the pandemic for individuals traveling to the United States from the Schengen area, the United Kingdom, Ireland, and South Africa. I find this interesting. Biden didn't lift these restrictions from the Trump administration. I wonder why. Well, there are Europeans and Africans restricted, that's why. Moreso from South Africa, why ban South Africans? Oh, let me guess, they had a high rate of infections and deaths? But did the Biden administration ever think about the same threat of individuals crossing the border in unsanitary conditions from Central and South America? Oh, let me guess, never mind the potential threat of those crossing the border. Let's make sure those Africans and Europeans don't come in. But it really was about South Africans not being allowed to enter. Yeah, we see the game. Non-American blacks would perhaps change the political landscape, and the Democrats can't allow that.
Haitians weren't welcomed with open doors as much. They were rounded up and sent back to Haiti. The Department of Homeland Security boarded many Haitian immigrants to, get this, discourage border crossers from streaming into camps in South Texas. Oh, but not so willing to do this with immigrants from Central and South America? Could it be because Haitians are black? What about those families? What about those Haitian children? It reminds me of the photos of old Joe surrounded by black people in those churches. He's overwhelmed with, well, blackness. It's uncomfortable to him, but that's because you pander to that community so much. You have to put yourself in uncomfortable situations to convince that community you are fighting for them. Photo ops for the votes, it's simple. I'll take a wild guess here and say that if most of the illegal immigrants were from Haiti, as opposed to Central and South America, Democrats wouldn't be so willing to advocate for open borders. And one of the reasons why is Haiti was devastated by so-called natural disasters, but the Haiti people have many revolutionaries, which Democrats couldn't manipulate and use, such as Central and South Americans. Haitians have more political and historical inclinations in relation to the United States. So you would not approve of many politically educated Haitians entering the country, and this is mainly due to the Haitian Revolution, and that revolutionary way of life would severely affect the political landscape. Remember, this was a slave revolt against slave owners, and that war led to the development of other countries, and guess where? Central and South America, go figure. We all saw the photos of horsemen appearing to whip Haitians as they scattered around. Never seen illegal immigrants from Central and South America being rounded up in this nature. In addition, I refer back to my colleague mentioning the lack of fathers with Central and South American women crossing the border. At least the Haitian men are seen carrying their children, being protectors, and physically there to pursue a better life for their children. Isn't that a symbol of strength, a symbol of strong fathers, a symbol of integrity, a symbol of determination, a symbol of pursuing the American dream? I guess not. It's safe to say, to take a line from Kanye West, Joe Biden doesn't care about black people. More so, the Democrats don't care about black people. No political party cares about black people because no political party actually cares about any group of people. They are in the business of authority, power, and control. They see every person, no matter skin color, as someone to control, manipulate, and even steal from. Yet, even in the political matrix, the actions of the left show they never cared about the black community and would fight for illegal immigrants first. Well, not the Haitians, though, because they're black.
Anywho, the Biden administration has had discussions about reparations for the black community. You heard that right. They had discussions about the discussion of reparations. In other words, virtue signaling. You can say a lot in an interview, on the debate stage, traveling across the country, meeting with the black churches, taking photos with black people, have black musicians perform at some rally. But when you return to comfort of the Oval Office, black people are an afterthought, and considering that the old man has a severe case of dementia, well, that makes it even worse, right? Might be an excuse he can use one day. Yeah, I kid. So in conclusion, Grandpa Joe and his administration has done absolutely nothing for the black community, yet has done more for individuals who are not even citizens of the country. Really? Shouldn't surprise you, it's party policy to manipulate the American citizens. Well, what do you expect from corrupt politicians? They sell you a dream while delivering a nightmare. All the more reason you need to wake up. This is the chaos sector.